I've been going back and forth between two horrible, unsustainable states, drunkenness and abstinence.
I hated myself. I used to wake up every morning when I was using, wanting to die.
Our book says that our drinking was but a symptom of deeper underlying causes and conditions.
Recovery is the process in which we uncover those things that keep us using and make abstinence feel like hell.
Life will mean something at last, that we will become happy and useful and whole, and it's amazing. Please don't give up before your miracles happen.
Sometimes people say, oh, he has a great message. Not mine. It's ours.
Oh,
No better way than just start, eh?
yeah, no, totally. Well,
You
you
know,
go first. You're the one coming down this way, so
yeah. Well, to start, I'm Perry, grateful recovering addict, and I run the SOBER-RECon YouTube sobriety channel. And last week I drove down to Maple Ridge to see Theo and his family, and it was a hell of an experience. I don't know, I was trying to find like words to put to that, right? But it was just like the whole trip. It's just like we were on a mission, a mission from God. And it's interesting too, like what I find most interesting is that entire trip is like me and you have different concepts of God, right? And yet the path and the direction and how we were used, it was the same. It's that to me is sweet. That to me is just like, is that two people from two different walks of spirituality can come together and be used in such great purposes. I don't know. I was just baffled by that. That was the highlight for me, was how much of a trip it wasn't like a trip for me. It wasn't a trip for you. It was a trip for us to just like put in work for everything but ourselves, really. I don't know how you felt about that.
yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I don't really have words to put to the trip, but I'm not, and I don't want to sound like I'm boasting or anything, but I wasn't surprised by the trip.
No,
At the
no.
end of it, I wasn't surprised that we did everything we did and everything unfolded the way we did. If anything, I was like, wow, like this reminded me so much of the Orlando trip in June of last year. June or July? I think it was June. No, it was July. My bad. But it was like this. It was like almost like the way I'm feeling about this trip that you came. At the end of it, I felt like Orlando was kind of like, is this real life? Like throughout the trip, like Nate and Dan and even Jose was saying how I can't believe this is real life. Like what is going on? Like there was some kind of weird feeling. It wasn't like, it didn't matter that we didn't have anything scheduled or anything super organized or planned or whatever. But as things unfolded and things happened and we were present, it was an experience that you can't really put to words. And honestly, I think, what I believe of God is you may not know him, and yet he still loves you. So he even says in the Bible, it's like, even the birds of the air he feeds. How much more will he feed his kids, his children, right? And so things happened, even with you, with Mark, like that was, I can't, right? We say this about Noble Father all the time. It's like, how are we doing this right now?
Yeah.
We orchestrated this whole thing,
Exactly. And like when I came down, like I had, right, like a vision, like an idea of like where to go, how to, especially with like in regards to recording it, right? I'm always like trying to with this channel is like record, and bring bring people into that journey. And sometimes like this trip was just very much one of those times where it's just like, it was mostly meant just for us to like live as things were happening, as things were going on. It wasn't one of those trips to bring others into. It was very much, we had a mission and a purpose, and that was clear to me. My very first note here is the drone shot. I left Clearwater and as soon as I got out of town just a little bit, I was like, I should start the drone shots, because I had a vision of just all sorts of different drone shots on my way there. I threw the drone up. I got the first drone shot, and then like right away, like not even a couple minutes later, it was like bam, started snowing, started raining. It was just like not weather to be throwing the drone up, and it did that the entire way until I got to Maple Ridge. It was just like snow and rain, and for a week ahead of time, I had like thought about all the stops I was gonna make along the way, take drone shots, And it's funny how that works. Like sometimes I can plan things out as much as I want to, but in the end, like I just, and that's what it was too, is like, going with the flow of what was happening. Yeah. So, yeah, so I guess I made it to Theo's house. We just hung out at your house for a little bit there, and then we went to Ellie's skating. And Ellie's Theo's daughter. So we went to skating. And that was cool. It was cool watching you. Like that was not the first time I've seen you in like dad mode, but like in that aspect, like, I've seen you at home with your kids, but that was the first time I got to see you like out in action, getting your daughter ready for skating. That was a cool experience.
Yeah.
And
we sat down, right? We sat down to watch, and you were getting messages from your daughter.
Yeah, I got a message from my oldest daughter. And she sent me her report card. And for me, that, that was a really special moment, because my oldest daughter isn't biologically mine. But I did raise her, for 8 years of my life and 8 years of her life, and that feeling and that connection is very real to me, right? Like she will always be my daughter, and that was from a past relationship. And sometimes when relationships end, that unknown, that not knowing of like, where your place is in that person's life anymore, right? And so it was I don't know, for the last like 5 years anyways, like it's been a challenge to like know where I stand, in her life. I know where she is in my heart, right? She'll always be my daughter and whatnot, but I'm not in her life every day anymore, and I'm not in that father role, I guess, is kind of like how it feels or whatever. And that does bother me, right? That does, there's times where that really gets to me, and so that was a really heartfelt moment that I put a lot of time into, making sure that she always knew that no matter what, I'd always be there for her, and she out of the blue sends me her report card, and wanted to share, and she's getting A's and B's, and she's just excelling and blossoming and growing, and I couldn't be any more proud, and I couldn't be any more, like, wow. There's no words for that. It was just like, here we are, and we didn't say this at the beginning, but Theo founded the Fathers Group, and that's how we ended up connecting. I joined the fathers group that Theo set up there, and so Theo's heard me talk about these kind of struggles and stuff as we as we go deep and talk as fathers. And so that was a really heartfelt moment, and for that to happen right in that moment was just surreal. Like, here I am sitting with a noble father, talking about noble father things, and we're being present in Theo's life as he's fathering, and that was just really cool how that turned out.
I totally didn't think. Oh, thanks, buddy. Hey, buddy. I totally didn't think that. Well, because we were watching Ellie skate, and then you got that message, and then I didn't know the significance of it really until you were showing some emotion about it, and I was like, and in my mind I was like, wow, is this a super rare occurrence? Like, what are the chances that this happens when you're in Maple Ridge and we're watching my daughter, and then you get a message from your daughter, almost as if you were primed to receive that message at that point,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, she's a teenage girl now, so we don't talk as much as
Right.
And and there's that level of, like, I don't know, I struggle sometimes with connecting with her just because of those things that happen. Like, like when we're in person, it's a lot easier, when I make a plan and I'm able to go drive and see her. But the last few times we talked, she wanted to come down, and I wasn't able to, just like get up and leave what was happening in my current life and go pick her up and bring her, to Clearwater and do the things we wanted to do together, and her to be able to see, like, she was really wanting to see her grandma and her mom and everybody too. And as that man who feels like I'm her father, there's always that, like I just want to get up and go and do what my daughter needs done, right? But then it's like, the same time, I have to live the life that I'm living here and now, and sometimes I can't just like drop what I'm doing. I can't just like not pay the things that I need to pay, so I could just like run and do that, and that just like irks the heart, right? Because as when you feel like they're your child, it's just, you do anything for them. So when you're in a position where you can't, that's why I think the emotion was so strong, because it was just like, we haven't talked as much because I don't know how to go about that part, like still processing, like, how do I get over not being able to be there for her every second of her goddamn life? And so, just the fact that she thought enough about me to send me that, her report card shows that, she still views me as a father, which, yeah.
Actually taught me a lot about who you are, and the impact you have on people, not just me, but also, like, on previous children from other relationships. And it did teach me a lot about you and your character. And honestly, I was like, I wasn't surprised again. I was like, of course. I mean, I know it's Perry. Like, I shouldn't be surprised by that. And so, yeah. And I see the way you are with my kids, and the way you are with Echo. Like, it is. We never debriefed the first time we did the trip where you came down to stay with us. But it's not easy welcoming somebody who, you only met online to your house to stay, but then to hit it off the way we hit it off, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, hard to put to words, because I think the space that we've created, like, it's really hard to be. Your bullshit will get seen right away. Like, people will smell it right away, and nobody who keeps coming out consistently will be able to maintain that falsehood. And so if you and the way we've created the space and the way we hold each other accountable and the way we try to push each other, try to get more information from each other, the less room there is to, BS your way out of things, So not surprised, actually.
Again, yep. I knew it was going to be an epic trip, just didn't think it was going to be that epic. And it went completely different than, how my brain pictured it. Kind of, sort of, like you said, there was definitely all the things that happened, I think, happened just about exactly how I thought it was going to happen. But, the level of how impactful it all was just like, that was the wild part for me.
It was strange, yeah, because that trip was almost like, from my perspective, is like you were there to see how I do life, almost. And it was like, because the skate, at the skating rink, that was probably like 4 hours into your trip. That was like, and already there was already so much to talk about. Because when we left there, Davian's jiu-jitsu thing was coming up, and I was already kind of going back and forth with my cousins about my aunt being in the hospital. And
yeah, and that's it. We were just discussing on our way home from skating where we were gonna go do our cold dip, because that was one of those plans. We were like, we're gonna dip every day that I'm down there.
Yeah, that was definitely on our minds.
So we're talking about that.
The accountability from the group of like, hey, did you guys do any cold dips yet? Like, it was weighing heavily on our side for sure. So any of those dads listening, you guys need to ease off a bit there.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we were just talking about that, and you got that message from your auntie, and Davian's jiu-jitsu was the next thing in line there.
Yeah, it's like less than an hour and a half from whenever Ellie finishes her class.
Yeah. And then, yeah, you got that message about your aunt passing, and that wasn't even, when you asked me, you're like, do you want to come, or you want to stay, or, it wasn't even a question. It was just like,
Well, before even that, like,
I will be there no matter what.
Yeah, do you remember when we stopped to get Starbucks? And you stepped out of the car, and I had a phone call with my mom. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a phone call that I've never had with my mom before. She's always been she's been here for, her mom's passing, her dad's passing, but this is the first relative after those two to pass away. And so you stepped out to go get Starbucks, and I had a conversation with her, and she was just bawling. She was just, a wreck, just crying, and yeah, there was no way to put to words that feeling. But I was like, I felt safe with you. Like, there's no, I was like, oh, my mom's crying in front of Perry, like, and she's on the phone, and there's never a point where I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't ruin Perry's trip. Like, there wasn't a part of me that was like, Perry's not going to understand this, and you were so okay with it, and you showed such concern for my mom. And so whenever it came time to, like, hey, are you okay if we go visit my aunt? I think, not that my mom's crying or anything, I think you're just a legit guy that just be like, no, it's cool, let's go, say goodbye to your aunt. And so, yeah, I did not expect that to happen the first night.
Yeah.
I was like
you said, within the first 4 hours.
Yeah, what a somber trip already.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and that's one of those things, like, I think about, like, we aren't biological family, but, like, we're family, and family you know, is there for each other, especially in those hard times and times of need. Like, you know, I wasn't able to do a lot, you know. I sat there and watched ponies with your daughter for, you know, a while, and that's all really, you know, and then just being there in the space and just, I don't know, being there as a support, you know.
Yeah.
That's sometimes all we can do, you know. And I guess it almost came naturally because, like, you know, I've had lots of those instances in my life, you know, with people passing and whatnot, and sometimes I'm just there for different purposes, you know. And the last passing was my uncle's passing, and you know, there's times where it was just like, felt like I almost like needed to be at the hospital, um and be there with my family, but then at the same time, you know, we had cousins and kids and stuff at the house, and you know, and that at that time, that's where my presence was needed, was to like be there playing with the children. You know, I wasn't meant to be at the hospital with the rest of the family. I wasn't meant to be over here, you know, doing it. Was just like, be there with the kids, you know, have fun with the kids. When the family comes all back, you know, be there to support, give hugs. So sometimes those roles is just like, you know, you don't know where you're supposed to be, and that's where it's just like, you know, you're like, do you want to study for your test, or you know, you can stay and study for your test and blah blah. And it's like, yeah, I'll come watch ponies with your daughter. I'm cool.
And that's how the go with the flow really works. Like, I mean, we and actually, that's, isn't that fatherhood too? Like, you have your way of how, you know, of thinking how the day is going to unfold,
Yeah.
and then your kid pukes or whatever.
Well, we'll get into that one.
That one.
Yeah. You know, and it was crazy, you know, while I was sitting there, actually too, you know, your wife and your daughter left the little waiting room there. And I got a call from a guy I've been working with. Um, actually, one of the sons from our father's group there, and he had relapsed and was in a really, really rough spot, you know. And like, it not, you know, that didn't really surprise me, because it's just like, that's, you know, usually like most of my days, like, so, you know, sometimes I'm doing crisis intervention calls quite often, so that didn't surprise me. But you know, that happened while we were there, and I was having that in-depth conversation with him, and I was being in a very stern fatherly role with him during that conversation too. Like, you know, it was it was funny. But yeah, and then just went back to watching ponies, and I always kind of chuckle how quickly, you know, it can go from like a crisis intervention call to like watching Applejack and Rainbow Dash just like doing weird stuff on life as a father.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, and the
Yeah.
next day, nothing really crazy happened, right? You had your exam.
Yeah, because that's how we kind of finished that day. We just went back to your house. I studied for a little bit, as much as I could, and went to bed. I woke up the next morning. You fed me breakfast, which was freaking delicious. And yeah, and then it was, you know, it was funny, like Theo went full father mode on me, you know. I was just in that, like, I was just gonna just like flying by the seat of my pants, like, you know, I just needed to get to the exams, start getting those done, and then I would just like figure out lunch like after the fact. You know, I kind of knew there was like a coffee shop or whatever on the side, so if I felt hungry. And Theo was just like, no, your brain needs sustenance. I'm gonna make you a lunch. And you sent me with, like, you know, this beautiful sandwich and grapes and like the whole 9 yards, a little sugar to just like, you know, get that little kick in for the day. And I really appreciated that, you know, because the first, you know, is another lesson of like going with the flow. Like right when I got to the tests, you know, I've been used to like parking meters and stuff where, you know, you just like put coins in or whatever. I didn't have any money in my bank account. It came all with cash, right? That's usually how I roll. don't usually deal with bank account stuff, or credit cards or anything like that. So I'm rolling with cash, nothing but cash. I made sure I had, money for parking. And then I get into the parking thing at the library. There, we went to the library to do the exams, and they don't have coin. They covered it up with like tape. Like there is no, you're not allowed to use coins. You have to use credit card, or you have to go online and like put in these codes. So I'm just like, well, that doesn't work very good. Like no money in my bank account. No, so I ended up calling my dad. I'm like, hey man, like, can you like, flog some just like $20 in for parking for the day so I can get parking. So he sent me money. I'm on this silly little app on my phone trying to like get the parking working, and every time I like go to pay, it just doesn't do anything. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? And then of course there's a sign there like, if you don't pay for your parking, you can get fined or whatever. And I was like, well, at least I can't get a tow truck down here. So I was like, whatever happens. Like I just had to like give it up. Like I tried my best to like pay for parking, couldn't pay for parking. So the whole day that was like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna get ticketed for I was like, I wonder how much that's gonna be. And then I got into the library, man, and I've never seen a building like that. You know what I mean? Like I come from the small country bumpkin town, it's like a little bit of culture shock, right? Like walk in there and this library is just like, it's amazing. There's like different levels and it kind of just like spirals up and we were on the top level and like looking down, and there's just like, it was so cool to see the culture and everybody like working in there and studying, and so many people studying different things and doing different things, and outside they're like filming a movie. Yeah, it was really cool. And I went into my first test with like some pretty high confidence, because I put a lot of work into those exams. And actually that's like the whole reason why this whole trip started, was because I had to head down there to do these exams. So thought I was there for that, but it ended up being so much more. But anyways, I went into my first exam with super high confidence, and then as I like started going through it, realized that I did not feel prepared for the exam that they gave me. My confidence went from here to like, oh shit, like this isn't good. Because I thought I bombed that first test. I really was just like, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So then I was just like, I got out of that exam and I was just like, oh boy. And I was like, that was the one I think I was most confident on. So like these other ones, like, oh no, this isn't gonna be good. And then of course, like with those thoughts rolling through my mind, I had to like really like work and I'm just like, no dude, like you studied, you did like as much as you could for this, like just like go in there, do the best you can, just get after it. And then so I went in and did the second one, and that one really worked me over, and I was like, oh no. Same thing came out of that exam, like, oh boy. I was like, I think this might have been a wasted trip. Like, I don't know about this. And I was like, it was lunchtime at that time. So I was like, I'm gonna go sit in the car and have my lunch and whatnot. And that's the first time I actually like looked at my lunch, and I got in there and I started eating my lunch, and I'm like, damn, Theo, you really took care of me. I was just like, and I felt so grateful, and I was just like, wow, I was so taken care of. So it's like, then it kind of just like helped me reframe my mind, because I was just like, I am taking, no matter what, like I am taken care of, like whether, and I just like flipped the script in my brain. It was just like, I might think I might be bombing these tests, and and I wanted to just be like, this isn't for me. Like, yeah, I was very much like, this isn't for me. Like, these tests are just like really showing me that, this probably isn't something for me, and blah, blah. And it was just like, well, we came down here, we said we were going to see it through, and that's why we're here. So just like, brush it off. You fell in the dirt a little bit, get up, brush it off, get back in there, and just finish what you came here and started, and the second two tests, and I think I put on the Discord there, I was like, boys, I'm getting worked, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you got like, you got this, man, you got this. I'm like, okay, yeah, like, let's just get after it. And I would like to say I slayed the next two tests. I like did in a way, but at the same time, like, they worked me too. Like, those exams were not easy.
Right.
And of course the end exam too, like, it ran into a little bit into our time, because our father's meeting was that same night. So I always get this I always get FOMO, when it comes to the fathers meetings. Like, I've been loving them so much that, when it's 4 o'clock, like, I want to be on the meeting. Like, I don't want to miss anybody. I want to see everybody that comes in. I want to hear everybody that comes in. So when I'm missing moments in the meeting, it bothers me. So here I am, like 20, 30 minutes late for the meetup, and I'm like on my way out of the exam, like trying to get into the meeting, and I wasn't able to participate. But man, there was a bunch of new guys showed up on the meeting. I didn't really get to see their faces or know exactly who they were, but I was hearing some amazing stuff, man.
And then that night, I mean, there wasn't anything really that night either. I think we just kind of finished the meetup, and then I think we hung out for a bit, and then you just kind of like, you just went to take your rest, right? We called it early that night. I don't think there was anything else.
No, that night, what was it? No, I got back. We did the last bit of the meeting together. And then your wife made us a beautiful dinner. So we went and sat, we had dinner. And then we did the electrical. Work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wanted new switches put into some of the light switches and try to convert some stuff so we could dim some lights so it'd be easier on the eyes. My wife is especially sensitive to that. And so yeah, I was like, hey, like before you came down, Echo was like, hey, can you tell Perry if Perry's able to do like electrical stuff, can he help us with like the light switches and stuff? And we ended up getting 2 switches, and so I was like, oh yeah, he can show us how to do one, and then he can show me how to do the next one. And so yeah, you put one in, and I watched you do it, and then the second one, you just like step right up, turn, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then so, I mean, now I know how to do it now. So
now Theo's an electrician.
Yeah, I'm an electrician now. So. Not red seal, but
yeah.
Maybe yellow seal or something.
Yeah, you got your white belt.
I got my white belt. Yep. I said I was gonna do it, and I did it. So.
Yeah, and then we climbed up into the attic and checked that out.
Yeah.
And then Theo vacuumed me off. Yeah, that was fun.
Right.
Yeah. And
full day still.
Yeah, and that was a full day in itself. But then, while we were we decided to decompress a little bit, and you were like, hey, you want to play a couple games on the Discord?
Yes.
And then we started playing games on the Discord, and then another father popped into to the Discord from our group, and Theo ended up playing with his brother, and I had a conversation with him, and that was an amazing conversation. That was there was a lot of when you're talking about like, you know, suicide and really hard topics, you know, it's hard to explain. It almost like it it takes a lot of energy, but it also like revitalizes and, you know, like brings life uh back into those souls that were lost, I think. I don't know, you know. I got to talk a little bit about you know, my uncle and my cousin, and he got to talk about his sister, and then, you know, he showed me a sister of or a video of him and his sister boxing, you know, and to like to see a spirit, you know, like, you know, that person isn't with us anymore, and to be able to like, you know, like he shared that part of his life with me, right? And like, you know, that pain of his sister gone, and we were able to both sit there and like, you know, watch him and his sister spar, you know, and it just like it vitalizes and it brings life back to that life, right? And you know, and I got to like remember, you know, my cousin, like the only video, the only like little bit of like something like that I have left is a video of him behind the camera. He took a video of me while we were partying one night, and I was dancing like a goof, and but his voice comes up in there, and he's like, you know, here's Perry after 5 grenade shots, you know, and just hearing his voice again, like it really makes you miss a person, you know, really. But it's just like, you know, like I remember that, you know, I remember that beautiful person, and you know, so that was a pretty powerful conversation. Like me and him went till like 1 a.m. before you called it quits there, and went to bed, and we talked for a while longer, and I think that was um a long overdue connection, you know. And again, like just weird how that happened while I'm at your house, you know, while we were just like, you know, it was just me and you playing games in there, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you know, look who's in the Discord too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely not planned, and just and I know that he needed it because I know what video you're talking about. We've had conversations in the past, and so I knew the significance of it. And I don't know why I never thought of, yeah, Perry's the perfect person to have a conversation about this. And so that it unfolded the way that it did. And yeah, that family's gone through a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, again, like, you know, was pretty drained from the day, and it was just like it's funny, you know, God was like, your day's not done yet, you know.
Right. You think you're coming down for the trip, but
That's it, you know.
yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
But it happened exactly, you know,
Right.
how it was meant to in those regards. That's for sure.
We're only 2 days in right now.
And that's only 2 days in. So yeah, because then the other part of the trip that we came down for. So I came down for exams, and then we had planned to do the sleep out to support the homeless youth, and was to support the programs that help homeless youth get off the streets. And I was stoked for that, you know.
Yeah.
That wasn't actually a plan off the get-go, you know. I was gonna go home right after I did my exams Friday morning, but yeah, Theo made a post of him and a few of his buddies that were gonna go and do this sleep out on the streets for homeless youth. And I thought when you posted it, it was like that weekend, and you're like, no, it's actually the day that you're leaving. And I was just like, well, to hell with leaving. I'll spend one more night.
Right.
I was like, I couldn't be an inconvenience because I'm not sleeping, like, you know, in their
Right.
house or anything.
Right. You're already here, and that room is already yours, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that was cool. So before we did that, we what did we have planned that day? We were gonna do a cold
finally
dip.
did our dip, yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't without anything either.
That was a journey to get to the dip for sure.
A ton of resistance, yeah.
Yeah. We had we had an amazing breakfast once again.
Right.
Started the day off like that, and then your kids were home from school.
Right.
So we were like,
Yeah,
okay.
we signed them out, I think, that day. We were like, oh, let's just let's just pick them out of school and then enjoy the day together. And so we did.
Yeah, so we threw them in the car and we headed up to the park to go and do a dip. And but unbeknownst to us, we were in a bit of a hurry, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, we tried to speed it up. We didn't go with the flow, and we didn't take it slow, and then we paid the price for it.
We paid the price, yeah.
I made the big mistake for sure.
Little man got it.
Driving a little bit fast inside the park, and twisty roads and stuff. And my son he's complaining at the beginning that his stomach was hurting, and then as we're going along, he's like, I need to open the window. And then he opens the window. He's like, Daddy, I need you to pull over. And where we were going, we couldn't pull over. And not even like 10 seconds after that, breakfast just came back out. And, that was brutal. That was quite a cleanup. Disappointing for sure. And my son is livid because this has happened now. And so we had to get cleaned up, and you were so okay with just like, yeah, this is dadding. This is like chill. And I'm like, man, you keep such a good composure. And I was so attached to the result. I was so looking forward to the cold dip, and maybe part of me was like, oh, we're not going to be able to do it now because this has happened. And then we got cleaned up, went back home, didn't fret about it, went back home, and then he got cleaned up. And
then we were like, well, we'll just leave them there and we'll go down to the river closer.
Right.
Still like, okay, like we got things to do today. We gotta get this dip in. And like, so we go down to the river close to your house, full of dead salmon.
Right. They're everywhere. Yeah.
So we're like, well, we're not dipping here.
Right.
And then it was just like on the way back from that, both of us were just like, why are we rushing this? Like, and that was, the universe working in that way where it's just like, as we're in that frame of mind, it's just setting up roadblocks for us to hit, like, hey, like, take a moment, sit back, and just like, you have an entire day, nothing
you had to go see your friend Mark, and I was at.
We had to go see, Mark.
Yeah,
so there was a little bit of a time constraint,
right? And then Wes was at 3:00, but then you called your buddy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's okay to meet at 1:00," and we're like, "Oh, okay. Well, then that gives us more time, and we definitely can manage getting that dip in." So we did.
So we slowed down. We went to we grabbed the kids again. We drove nice nonchalantly up to the park.
This time slower and steadier, yeah.
And got up there and did our dip. I think we both made like a little video for for the sleep out or whatever. But this is still one of the, like, the whole time I'm thinking of, like, my brain was just like wanting to record the whole experience, wanting to capture everything, and and bring the community into, like, seeing, like, how we're living life, what we're doing. And the whole time it was just like major resistance on the filming part. The whole feeling was just like, it's not a time to film, it's just a time to be present and be a part of and do what you're doing. So left the cameras. I did get a little clip of us full dipping, but same thing when I reviewed the footage later, I didn't reset the settings from the settings that I had it on. So I set my settings on my GoPro for when I was riding dirt bike. And so there's like a big Like there's big portions of the clip that are just not usable because the settings weren't made for that, because it was like quick on the fly, like didn't have it on auto. It was just like it was set to a specific thing because I was learning that specific thing, and I totally forgot about that. So when I did get back and I looked at it, I'm just like, yeah, that'd be about right.
Yeah, that matches the theme of the trip. Yeah.
Yeah, just like that is what it is. So the dip was amazing. I haven't Theo sparked this this cold dipping last year when I first joined the group. You were challenging boys, and no one took the bait. Everybody was just like, nope, no to cold water.
Right.
And that was one of those full circle things for me and you. Was my first trip to come down and see you. We went out for a cold dip. I was like, if I'm coming to see Theo, I better hop in some cold water, because he's been like pushing that for a while. And my first experience cold dipping with you was pretty miserable. It was
It was short lived.
it was short lived. Yeah, I hopped out. I did not nope, was not prepped for that. Wasn't
But little did you know, it lit a fire in you.
yeah, it did. Yeah. And
how long did that take? You were here in April.
Yeah.
April,
May, June, July, August, September, October, November, October, 6 months. 6 months later is what is funny how the universe works. I was thinking about discipline, and in the moment, that little video of like discipline when you're cold dipping came in and hit me, and it was just like it's great to make plans when you feel motivated, but when you're not motivated, that's when discipline kicks in, and discipline doesn't care how you feel. You just get up and you get after it, and that's what discipline is. And that's what helps you keep on your goals and keep on the direction and on the path, because you're not always going to feel motivated. You're not always going to feel like you're on top of your game 100% of the time, especially like when things like our trip happen. You get sidetracked, like you have this vision of how things are going, and it's just like, nope.
right?
And that happens in my life so often that it's just like, it's easy to get discouraged and not follow through with things. So that's why I started. That's why I was just like, well, son of a bitch, I gotta start dipping.
And that was the tail end of your 30 for 30 day thing, like the trip.
Yeah, I was on day, what was that day?
No, you finished.
Day 46. Yeah, I finished my 30 days and I kept going.
Right.
Because I finally seen like, I finally got that that crazy, like, this feels good. Like, I like this now. So that's why we're pumped. I was like, come down. We're cold dipping every day. I'm there.
Yeah.
And we had to be okay with not dipping. So it was cool to like finally get there, finally be with you, and get into that water. And I hadn't done it in the river yet. I thought about it, but where I am, it's full of dead salmon.
Right.
So kind of same situation. I was like, I'm not getting in the river there. But it was like thousands of tiny knives ripping through your body. That's how that felt. The after effect was just, I don't know, that whole park, man, there's something about that where you guys go dipping, it's just surreal.
Yeah.
Kind of like you said your experience with like, Dan Haas and everybody, like, is this real? And that's how it feels being up there dipping with you. Was just like, is this real? And your kids are running around having a good time, it's just, that's cool.
And that day was amazing. Like that, the weather we had, like the whole week that you came, like
beautiful,
phenomenal weather. Like it was
sun shining.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess we left the dip, went back, showered up, and then went and met my buddy for lunch. which was a connection that, same thing, was just so weird. He called me up, like, I hadn't heard from him for a while, and he was struggling pretty hard, and um hadn't heard from him for a while, and out of the blue, like a week or two before my trip, he's like, calls me out of the blue, and I'm like, hey man, it's nice to hear your voice, like, how are you doing? He's like, good man, I'm in Maple Ridge, just working. I'm like, no way. So, of course, when I was coming down to see you, it was like, that was one of those connections that was just like, that was meant to happen for sure.
Well, that blew my mind. I was like, what? This friend you used to know a long time ago lives in Maple Ridge now?
Yeah.
And you'd get the call while you're here? Like, how does that happen?
That's it. And like, like, for a while, like, I didn't know whether he was alive or he wasn't alive. You know what I mean? Like, he was just like, he had just disappeared. And so for him to be right where you were, right where I was heading to, like, how does that even happen? And as soon as we walked in there, man, it was just like, I didn't even recognize him. Right? Like, totally different person. Like, he looked alive, right? Like, when you see people struggling with addiction and going, still fighting those demons, I don't know how many people you come in, they're half dead, right? Like, they're, and it wasn't pretty, like, just like when I came into recovery, right? Like, it was not pretty, like, I was, on the verge of death, constantly. It was just, it was a miserable existence and a miserable time. And, and that was the last part I remember of Buddy, was just like, there was just like man, how far do we go, right? And then sort of like walk in there and see this beautiful man with crazy like life in his eyes. It was just like, dude, like, oh man, that fills a guy's heart, And we got to, and it's not, it's not like he's not struggling, right? He's still got life, still got things on the go, and and for him, right? He so, and yeah, we sat down, we had lunch, we got to have all these great conversations, and he got to connect with you, which was I think remember when I first came down and I met with Wes, and you were like sitting there and you were like, I think I was just like the person to bring this connection together, right? It was just like, you guys, you're like, you were here to like connect, and that's how I very much felt. Like, there was just like, I was kind of just like there to bring you guys together,
Right. Well, I definitely felt that. I was like, you guys were having a conversation, you guys were talking about your, catching up on old times and stuff, and I was like, I found myself wondering, like, why am I here? Like, my kids are here, they're sitting there, I'm sitting there, and you guys are having this conversation, and there's no point where I could, say anything in there. So I was kind of like, I felt like I was just spectating for a bit. But then as the conversation went on, I was like, wow, like, there's a great purpose. We met him on a Friday. CR is meeting that weekend. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff happening that there is no plan. You're going to see Wes in a little bit too. So you can introduce him to Mark, or, tell him about Mark coming out. And just, yeah, when I think back on that, it's like, wow, like, that was significant for you, but it wasn't significant for me either. Like, I walked away with something too. Like, it gave me a lot of hope to see you talk about your friend Mark, who, clearly had been through a lot and now found himself back here to meet you on your journey. Especially if you've come such a long way in your recovery. If you didn't, Mark's journey wouldn't impact you the way that it did,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just like, I'm excited to see, where the connection with you guys, takes all you guys. Like, that was just, you know, I look forward to great things.
Right. Well, I invited him to the church, and because he said he was, going to one, and Wes goes to the same one, and we have a good men's program. Like, I just thought it's a no-brainer, right? Just to get a feeler out there, see how he would like it. Definitely, you don't want to be alone whenever you're going through the things he's going through.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that was funny too, right when we're leaving lunch, he had an appointment to be at. And we were driving him back home, and he was trying to figure out how he was going to get to his next appointment, and his appointment was right across from where we had lunch, and we ended up having to turn around and go grab his bag from from the restaurant. And so it was just like, it worked out perfectly to drop him off for his appointment, and he didn't have to worry about that, and it wasn't really out of our way. And then we went back home and got to meet with Wes, and I love that man. He's a pretty amazing human being. And the funny thing is, like, I usually get pictures, right? I'm really good at usually getting pictures of like me and people, and like, and whatnot. And for some reason, like both times now, me and Wes have met, not a picture together. Like, I was thinking about that. I was like, I'm gonna have to like Photoshop like a picture of me and Wes together just so we can have a picture together.
We're just very present. We don't need
very present.
Take a lot of photos and stuff, right?
No. No, which yeah, and then you had to, what did you have to do when you had something? Oh, you had jujitsu with the boys, or with Davian?
Yeah, with Davian, and then I wasn't gonna be able to go to. I think that's what happened.
Right. Yeah, because me and Wes hung out for a little bit, got to talk and connect again, and then.
Oh yeah, you left from the house by yourself.
Yeah, and then I left to go pick Mark up and bring him to meet up with Wes to make that connection. Which, like, yeah, I felt a little guilty like in that moment, because like I didn't have time to, because we're still we're still trying to make sure we get ready to go for what we have to do that night, and all this other stuff's happening, right? So I wasn't able to stay there and like be there with Mark, and but very comfortable just like bringing him over there, meeting up with Wes, and then and then like leaving and having to go do something, and and who knows where that connection will lead to, right? Like, it's just so stoked, so cool, and grateful to just be like that person, right? Like, it was like my part in that was just to go pick him up and bring him over to meet some other guy and then leave,
Yeah, and you couldn't stay the whole time because of this.
Yeah, and I would have loved to just like be a part of that whole experience, but like
right.
That's where I then called to do something else, which was go get ready for the sleep out. So
right,
we got our tarp ready and our sleeping bags, and that was a hard goodbye for you and your kids.
Oh yeah, totally. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. There's a lot of tears and a lot of sadness coming from my kids, but
they weren't stoked to see you go. And
no, even just for one night.
Yeah. And powerful how connected you guys are, right? For it shows how much you're in their lives. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it disrupts them so much that you're not gonna be there, and I even remember that the first time that you came down to see me, which talk about inviting someone into your house. The first time me and Theo actually met in person, Theo showed up at my house before he even got there and welcomed me into my own home.
Right. Yeah, that was a scary trip. I didn't know if I was gonna make it back either.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, like to see how disrupted your kids were, shows how present and how powerful your presence is in their lives and in your family's life, right? It's admirable, good sir.
Yeah, it takes me back and reminds me of me. When I was growing up, my dad would go on trips and a lot of tears like that. And I did that all the way up until I was probably like 14, 15 years of age, just because it was so difficult. Yeah, I understood the risk of doing ministry in China too. So it was a part of me that was like, the worst, your mind goes to the worst places, but yeah.
Yeah.
So then the sleep out.
Yeah,
we didn't really know what to expect, huh?
No, we didn't. Yeah, we went well, hit the supercharger for a bit there before we headed there, and just it was kind of like the angst. Like, I know I was feeling some angst to just like get there and get going, and this is the first time I got to meet your brothers too, and I was stoked about that. And
you just hit it off.
Yeah, man, you got a good crew of guys there, and so we got there and we waited, and same thing, tried to like make a little like video intro thing there, and it just like it wasn't flowing very well. And
Right.
Looking back at it after, I'm just like, it almost felt forced, and so it's just like it's unusable content. I mean, I guess it could be used, but when things feel forced, it's interesting. So there was that. But yeah, I got to meet your brothers and headed into this event not knowing exactly what was to be expected. All we knew is we were sleeping on the street. But when we got there, it was they actually had someone at the front gate, making sure that the area was secure for us, because that was definitely one of those thoughts. It was just like,
right, it's also Surrey, so I mean,
yeah, and like me coming from the country too, like I don't know.
right,
like,
right,
yeah, but I was stoked to be there to help support that, because I've been in situations before where like homelessness could have been a very real possibility if it hadn't been for people in my life, and having support and help, and there it was gratitude, and just like humility kept running through my brain the entire time. Was just like, how grateful am I to be able to not even just have a house over my head, right, but like just to be able to have a friend to come down to to see, and and they gave me a bedroom. They call it my room now. Like, how grateful, how lucky am I, right?
his room, yeah.
Yeah, because there was definitely a time in my life, right, where it was just like it was started to get to where like people, like I had one guy tell me one time, like, didn't want me in his house. I was there visiting his brother one time, and he's just like, I don't want that guy in my house. Like, tell him, like, just don't come back. And I remember that being like the worst feeling, right? It was just like, somebody didn't want me in their house, right? And so to be able, like, to be accepted into your house was just,
That's something I had to work on a lot too. I mean, it's not I never used to be okay with that. And so when you talk about that experience of not being wanted in somebody's place, like I used to be very unwelcoming when my dad and mom would invite friends or people that needed help into the house. I'm not that person anymore either. That was my teenage years, so it's kind of, it was really rough around the edges,
Still growing into the human you are.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we were gonna live feed when we first got into there. I thought we were gonna like get set up right away. I didn't know that there was gonna be like an assembly. Felt like I was back in school, kind of like, you know, we all
Right. Yeah,
we all collaborated in the gym and
Guest
you know,
speaker. Yeah.
had a speaker and they were talking, so we were kind of live streaming that part of the event there, and that took a while, but you know, got to connect a little bit with your buddies there, and there's a lot of people there, man. Like,
Yeah, I'd say there was probably like 80 people, probably 120 something people.
you
Really
think
quite a
that
few.
little?
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't really get a
I
sense.
I thought there was like at least, yeah, I thought there was at least like 150 people in just like our side of the room there.
I'm not good at estimating.
Yeah. I don't know, there's a lot. Anyways, a lot of support, a lot of people there.
Right.
It was cool. Then we all broke out into to breakout rooms. You know, and got vulnerable with each other and talked about stuff, and I felt pretty comfortable doing that just because I think I'm used to doing that with my meetings and my recovery and stuff, is you know, getting vulnerable with strangers, so that kind of felt natural to me.
Right. Yeah. And I do that all my whole life, just telling people things, and people open up themselves to me. I can't open up. You know, I don't not open myself up to them. So
Yeah, so that was cool. It's cool to sit there and, you know, go over all that stuff, and then outside to the big sleep out, and I don't know, when we got out there and got set up, like, you know, it was just like, this is happening. This
yeah,
is
right.
for real, like, you know.
Right, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt pretty comfortable and pretty warm, and then yeah, you and your boys started doing the workout challenge together, you know, and I was cool. I like look over and I'm like, the hell are they doing? You know, and
That's Alex, really. Alex is he doesn't quit. Like he'll hurt himself, and he'll do presses in bed, and he'll, you know, go on vacation and do push-ups and run around and do all these things. He's just always up and going. He doesn't ever stop, and so
yeah, you know, and it was cool, right? Because like me and you have like connected like this, like, you know, and one-on-one, but seeing you with your crew of boys, you know, and the way you guys treat each other, and the way, you know, the way you push each other and challenge each other and like lift each other up and like drive each other was, you know, it was cool to watch. I was definitely like at that moment, like, I don't know, that when I was sitting there, I hit this like emotional and mental wall where it was just like nighty night time. So,
yeah, and you
so
clocked out right away. Yeah.
yeah, I watched you boys for a bit and I was just like, I was inspired. I was like, that's cool, you know.
Yeah, I never think I could do that many push-ups, but whenever I'm around them, like you don't think you can't do something when you're around them. Like
You
it's
just
like, oh, they're going to the next level. Well, I got to go to the next level, and you just, and then suddenly you realize, you're like, wow, like I didn't realize I could do this many push-ups.
Yeah. And that's it. That was, I think, the cool part. It was just like, it wasn't like a competition between you boys. It was like each of you pushing the next guy to just like accomplish bigger things. Right? Had nothing to do with like, you know, like, I'll do this many push-ups and, you know, blah blah, and I did this many and you did. It was just like, you know, like each time it goes around, like we'll each do one more and one more, and we'll keep pushing it, we'll keep striving, let's keep the chain going, and let's keep each other just pumped and motivated.
Right.
You know, it was cool. It was cool, and it motivated me, like, you know, when I got back to you know, to start looking for that crew again. It's been a while since I ran in a crew of guys who, you know, I don't know if we ever pushed each other like, you know, like that for like growth. in that sense. Especially back then, it was just like we were just using together and stuff like that. But my crew guys now is just like, the old wise men. Like that's who I surround myself with, and like I love those boys, and they're such a big part of my life, and and they are my crew. But there's a lot like in regards to like the cold dips where it's just like, I'm like, let's go cold dip, and then they're like, man, I'm retired. Like, no.
I don't do that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. They're like, watch some boob tube, and come meet up with some boys, and so it's driving me like in these coming days and these coming months and these coming years to just like, slowly find those my crew of boys, that really just like are around my same age and want to push and grow and learn. And I'm stoked. I can't wait to come back to meet up with you boys, and like, that was another sweet connection, because now when I come back, it's just like now I want to meet up with you boys, like, with the crew, and like,
And that's
I want to run with the wolves, man.
Yeah, that's not even like, yeah, because Derek and Alex and I are in the same jiu-jitsu gym, and there's like so many of those guys in the group, like in the gym. Like they just want to see you improve. They just want to see you keep showing up. They just want to keep encouraging you to show up. Like there's no ego involved in the jiu-jitsu that we do, and that's a thing that money can't buy. Like you can't, that friendship with Alex, like I don't, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my son, obviously. And so, when I think about it, it's like, man, God did a thing. Like God brought us together for a reason. Because as much as I like to think that Alex is helping me with my growth, still a part of me is helping Alex with his growth as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all the jiu-jitsu guys the same way. Like you just, such a.
And even Derek, like, Derek's in his 50s or whatever, but like, you guys are like pushing him to grow, and he's,
Right.
It's just,
guy.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So, I wish I could have been a part of what you guys got going on there, but like I said, I hit a wall of just like, there's no more in the tank.
Right. The days were crazy. Like that's already
days were crazy.
The day, right? So
yeah. So yeah, I went to bed, and I crashed hard for like, I don't know, 2 hours or something like that. You boys
for
stayed.
The record, I didn't wake you up. I was very quiet, wasn't I? Maybe.
That made me chuckle. I didn't know how serious I was. Was that, or like, how serious that my comment felt?
No, I
said, "Don't wake me up."
Yeah, like, don't wake me up. I thought it was humorous for me. Well, I was like, oh yeah, for sure. Why would I want to wake you up? Like, there's no reason for me to wake you up. And then actually in my heart, I was like, yeah, I really don't want to wake you up, because then that'd be really bad if you did fall asleep and then I woke you up and then you couldn't sleep the rest of the night. That'd be brutal. Right?
Yeah.
You have to drive the next day. I was like, yo, that definitely doesn't make sense. I'm doing all this math in my head and doing like 4D chess in my head. So
yeah. But yeah, I slept for like 2 hours, and then I woke up and I could not get back to sleep. Like I was so uncomfortable. Usually I'm a belly sleeper, so like I sleep on my belly with like my face in the pillow, and I didn't bring a pillow. I was on just like a chunk of cardboard, and like there was no way I was sleeping on my belly. Right. So like trying to sleep on my side, and like I was like a dog just spinning in a circle, and like lay down and get up and spin in a circle and lay down. Like I could not get comfortable, and was up the rest of the night.
Yep.
And got the full experience of like, like how a homeless person probably feels. I thought about that while I was like, this is probably why, you see homeless people just like conked out in the middle of the day, right? And why they have no energy to use the daytime, right? Because the night is just like a struggle to survive, right?
Yeah, and you don't blame them, right? At that point, you're like, wow, like, of course you would.
Right? And that was like a very humbled feeling for me. That was just like, brought in another level of compassion, because like I already have like a pretty good level of compassion for, I've talked to a few homeless people before.
Right.
I've seen a little bit of it, you know, and I've had conversations with a few of them, and, you know, it's definitely not, you know, all what you think sometimes, right? Like you're like, oh, they all like made bad decisions and that's why they're on the streets. You know, it's like the one guy I met, you know, he got kicked out of his car, you know, he got into a tuffle with his woman, got kicked out of the car, you know, and unlike me, he didn't have anybody to call and be like, hey, I'm sitting in, you know, Kelowna. I can't get out of here. Can you come pick me up? You know, I have people I can call that'd be like, yeah, man, I'll be there, you know, in like 3 hours, you know,
Right.
not in like 20 minutes, but they'd be there in 3 hours. You know, I got a few people there that could probably get there, but I have people I could call. He had nobody. All his family was gone, you know. I'll remember this guy forever. His name was Chris, you know, and all his family was gone, had nobody. That woman was his last like person who like truly cared about him. And so there he is in Kelowna, not able, no money, got kicked out of the car, no money, no nothing. And you know, he's like, for the first little bit, he tried to find a job, but in order to have a job, you had to have a house. And then it's like, you know, with the market, it's just like, you know, in order to have a house, you have to have a job, you have to have proof of income. So it's like this fighting back and forth between, well, how do you get one without the other, right?
Juggling act, yeah.
Yeah. So he just like, you know, got to a point where he's just like on the street, and of course, you know, you're not always going to meet great connections on the street, right? Like you're going to meet people who are struggling, you know,
Right.
mental health addiction. So like, you know, and especially like I've been in that spot where you're so angry at the universe too that you just don't care,
Right.
and you go into full self-destruct mode. And yeah, and that's what he did, you know, drinking and drugging, and you know, and it was all just like, if he had that little bit of help from the get-go, you know, to like get back on his feet and like get some housing, get a job, and get going, right? How would that have looked? You know? So for me, that's why we were sleeping there. And that's why for me, it was just like super humbling to be like laying there, not able to sleep the entire freaking night and be like, you know what, if I like woke up this morning and like there was a patch of sun, I would go and curl up and just like get my fucking Z's in for the day.
Yeah, totally.
You know, because like I could actually probably like
Right.
get to a spot where you're like, you know, a little bit warm, a little bit comfortable.
Well,
But
you're
yeah,
safer too during the day too, so
that's it. Yeah. And that's one thing we didn't have to worry about being there was our safety, right? It was a secured location, like they had security all night. You know, so you couldn't imagine sleeping in like, you know, tent city or, you know, somewhere else where, you know, robbery and theft and, you know, wondering what's going to happen to you during the night. Yeah. Couldn't imagine. So what a good cause. What a good you know,
yeah,
I would say what a good way to end the trip, but the trip didn't end there.
no, it didn't. It
No.
absolutely did not.
We got woken up in the morning. They fed us a nice breakfast,
Yeah.
which was cool, and we got to sit down and kind of
Brief.
yeah, debrief of what that night looked like and how everything felt, and you know, will we be coming back next year? And the answer is hell yeah. You know, I'm excited to go back and to be able to support, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, like, you know, it's interesting too, right? Because I'm not a man of faith, right? And so like, you know, that was a faith-based program, so it's not something that I would usually, you know, go to. And that's where it's just like, you know, prejudices aside, and like all of that, like, you know, stuff is just like, we're all here for the same cause. Like we're all one. We're all here for the same cause. We're all here for the same purpose. We're all there, you know, the universe, the God loves us, you know, we're all children of the universe. We're all children of God. So like, you know, like there's no room in this world to just like be prejudiced about like, you know, because that's one of those things that like what, you know, went through my mind. It's just like, well, this is a faith-based program and you're not a man of faith, you know, and like, you know, do you support faith-based program? It's like, well, look at what they're doing, you know. Hell yeah, I support that, you know. Like, I love that, you know. Awesome. So I, you know, I grew in, you know, I grow a lot. I was actually talking about this with someone yesterday. It was just like, you know, there was a long time where I had a lot of stigma, a lot of prejudice like around religion, right? And I find that I've done so much growing being around religious people, being around, you know, because it's, you can see we're all on the same journey, right? Doesn't matter if I believe in something or you believe in something different. It's just like we're all on the same journey and we all have the same feeling. And we're all, you know, we're all one. And it's so beautiful and it's so nice and freeing. And like I said, like I felt like I've grown so much to be able to like, you know, mingle, you know, be a part of without being like, well, this is a real religious event and like, you know, I'm not religious, so I don't belong here, you know. Had nothing to do, you know, with that, which is cool. That felt amazing for me and can't wait to do more of that. Hell yeah. Yeah, so then we're pretty conked out. We got back to your house. Yeah, you conked out pretty fast. I was tired, but I had a big drive ahead of me. And then that was the other amazing thing was like a few days. Mark had to get to an appointment, you know, and didn't. He was denied. He was denied his bus pass to get to where he needed to go. So he was stressing on how to get there and whatnot. And
Wow.
it just so happened the day I was leaving was the day he needed to travel to get to where he needed to be.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when he asked me if he could get a lift back to Kamloops, you know, that was just like baffling in itself because it was like, you know, how was that? Like you couldn't have planned that. You could, like you say, you couldn't have orchestrated that, right? That happened, you know. Something else was working there, right?
Right.
And so I, you know, and we had great conversations the whole ride, and it was funny too, because you know, before wasn't very reliable, you know, so like I didn't know, you know, how reliable he was going to be. So I said like, you know, I'm going to be leaving around this time, you know, so if you want to ride back, you know, I'll be here or whatever. And so I messaged him after I left your house there. I'm like, hey man, just gonna go gas up, get coffee, blah blah. I'll be ready to leave here pretty soon. Didn't get a reply back. And I was just like, uh-oh. So
Right. The old thoughts of Mark comes back, right?
the old thoughts of, you know, how it used to be came back. And I was just like, oh boy. So then I went and got my gas and I got coffee and then I like looked at the time and I was getting back into that like rushing phase that like we were at when we like, you know, just like when we were going up to do our dip. And I was just like, okay, like you told them like, you know, like by 12 o'clock. So just like give it a little bit of time. So I was getting myself all worked up like, oh, he's not going to show. Am I wasting my time? Should I get going? Blah, blah. And then like, you know, so I ended up getting my coffee and whatnot, and then just like I drove and just like parked down the street from the building where he was at. I was like, you know, give it 15 minutes, you know, give it till noon, and then go from there. If he doesn't answer, then, you know,
Mhm.
it is what it is. But like, don't leave in an angst. Give him the time that you said, right? And and then of course, like, yeah, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes before 12, he's just like messaged me. He's like, hey man, he's like, just got out of, you know, a meeting that he had to do, was like, you know, required of him to do, and he was in the meeting, and that's why he didn't reply.
Mhm.
Yeah, and here I was getting worked up, like, oh man, like, you know, is he gonna show up, like, blah blah blah, and it was just like,
Right.
you know, so it was a big lesson again for me, like, you know,
Right. To
chill,
attach,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, don't, you know, like, it's that whole thing was meant to happen, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I was meant, you know, to get all angst up and to get impatient and to have to come to that place where it's just like, dude, you know, slow down,
Take a chill pill, yeah.
just wait and see what happens, you know. And he followed through, and we got in the car and we had great conversations all the way back to Kamloops, you know. And that was cool for me too, right? Because I didn't have to travel alone for a good portion of that trip, you know.
Mhm.
I got to have a brother with me and share together, and
Yeah.
you know, it was beautiful.
Yeah, good way to wrap up the trip for sure. I was worried about you falling asleep on the way back or whatever. And so having Mark there was, you know, definitely fulfilled a different purpose.
Yeah, man, like, you know, the way we were sharing and talking and whatnot, like I was vibing the whole trip back, like there was no
Wow.
falling asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wow.
And it was just like, so that, yeah, and then just like so grateful. Like when I got home and just like laid my head on the pillow, I'm like, what an amazing journey. What an amazing trip. Didn't go how I thought it was going to go at all, and it went so much better than I ever could have imagined, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah, man, that was good.
That's a and then you got your results back. You got your test results back, which
I got those back, yeah, yesterday. So I
nice.
passed.
Right.
We're
Not
all good.
fear
We're
for
all
nothing. You got you could do it. You did it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I had to unattach, you know, to the results the entire time too. It's just like, you know, stressing about it wasn't going to help me. It was very much just like I did my best that I could do. Whatever comes of it, we'll go from there and figure it out
So
as we go.
showed, yeah.
Yeah, you know. And I got rewarded when I got home too, right? Like the next day I got to see my little boy, you know. Same
Yeah.
thing, not my biological kid, but
Wow.
you
Yeah.
know, I don't get to see him very often, and that was you know, amazing to go sit there and have coffee with him. Just like, wow. Blessed we are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's it, man.
No good. Any
I think
closing
that
remarks?
can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, come whenever you want.
Can't wait to see those munchkins again.
Yeah, they're little rascals. These
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
It'll be exciting to get Renee down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when's Renee's
You
birthday?
guys do. August 11th.
August 11th. Okay, but he
Yeah.
came over asking earlier. So.
All right. I think we might have to plan a trip where you guys come tobogganing and snowmobiling for
Ooh, that would be sick.
some point this winter.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. When would
We
that
can
be?
all huddle in the cabin, man. There's more than enough space.
Yeah. Once that supercharger's up, man, then we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should plan that. That'd be amazing.
I'll look into that. See when that thing's gonna fire up.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, bud.
Okay,
Awesome.
brother.
Good, bro.
Well, much love to you, and I sure do appreciate you, man.
Well, we're gonna do this again. This isn't gonna be the last time we do this. So.
Yeah, yeah. It's an amazing friendship,
Absolutely.
amazing things are happening.
Wouldn't have it any other way, bro.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, take it easy, bro.
You too, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.